Hi, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Jim Miller and Terrence Moore. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. The primaries are over. The primary election has been certified, but gentlemen, we still have more to talk about.
We do indeed.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Jim, let's start with our county commissioners race. We have our clear 5 on the Republican side, and we only had 2 on the Democratic side, and they're going through. And just to kind of recap on the Republican side, we had President of the County Commissioners, Jeff Klein, is the leading vote getter with 12.8% of the vote. He was followed closely by Randy Wagner, who had 12.1% of the vote. Coming in third, back at it as a Republican, is John Barr with 11.7% of the vote, closely followed by Wayne Kiefer, that came in the 4th spot by only 9 votes, separation between him and John Barr. And then Derek Harvey, formerly worked in the Trump administration, marketed himself pretty well, and he is in the mix at 10.5. Jim, what say you about the Republican side of the slate?
So the Republican side of the slate, the Republican side of the slate is really, to me, a couple things. Number one, regarding to the election results, you see a huge drop-off between number 5 and number 6. I mean, we go from, 58-56 to 48-11, from 10.58% down to 8.70%. And 8.70% was Charles Burkett, who was an incumbent. Although
he was an appointed.
He was an appointed incumbent. Yeah. Yes, that is an appropriate distinction. But my theory of name recognition and its power in an election cycle is obviously being tested here, because I frankly thought Mr. Burkett would potentially go through based on my theory.
Well, your track record in this election cycle has not been very good. It is.
Terrence, would you like to start hosting the show next week?
As we get to the general, you're going to have some opportunities to redeem yourself.
I hope I do.
But, friends of yours, friends of the show, Ron Bowers and Bob Rucci, obviously did not perform well.
No. Ron was a surprise for me, frankly. And I'd love to understand why the voters pulled the lever. And I know that's nothing we'll ever be able to understand, but I would love to know that at this level, is what is the distinction? What made them go for Wayne Kiefer, Derek Harvey, Jeff Klein, Randy Wagner, John Barr over Ron Bowers, Bob Brucci, Charles Burkett? There are some that...
I think one piece of it is really simple. From the standpoint of the voters on the Republican side are not used to pulling the lever for Ron Bowers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that may be true.
Okay, we went from D to R. Nothing's changed.
No.
Right? Terrence, what say you?
I agree. Again, it is name recognition. These are the names. I think these are the same names that we selected when we talked before the primaries went in. We know that John Barr, though it is a new name coming into here, but it is a common known name. John Barr I also loved his marketing ploy. He wrapped his whole entire vehicle, to promote him voting as well. But I think that's a return back to some of the normalcy that I think a lot of voters may be possibly looking towards there as well. And what I would also say is there was only 14,000 votes casted, 14,027 to be exact, votes casted by Republicans out of over 48,000 registered voters as well. So if you look at these numbers from that standpoint, some of these individuals have got well over 50% of those voters, because in this race you got to select up to 5. So right. Some people selected 2, 3, 1, so you didn't have to select 5, but some people probably selected a lower number of voters individuals, candidates as well. So I'm not surprised by many of the names that that came out here. And Harvey, honestly, he ran a strong public campaign. Threw a lot of money behind it as well.
He did.
It was a high level. It could have been a state level campaign that, you know, if you look at some of the marketing things that he put out there as well. And I think he also had a message that was a return to the norm of the Republican Party as well, of, you know, that wholesomeness that he's tried to really put out there in his ad and marketing. So again, I'm not surprised by the voters. I thought there would be an outlier.
You were predicting a woman that would get in, but that was nowhere to be found.
No, I was surprised by that as well. But
I don't believe either of the two ladies ran strong campaigns either. I mean, there wasn't a lot of there. I mean, I saw Victoria Beachley. She had a commercial online that kind of a spot that came out late. But other than that, I really didn't see much there. You know, in regards to Harvey, you know, I looked at the filings in regards to who was funding whose campaign. You know, much of Harvey's dollars, you know, came from his friends in other locales. It wasn't local money that he had come into this election cycle for him. Obviously, we knew that, you know, Jeff Klein's popularity, because if for anything, Jeff's going to be everywhere, right?
He is.
So if
And you know what?
anybody's going to
That's
win
a pretty
on
good strategy.
right, if anybody's going to win on name recognition,
Yeah,
it's going to be Jeff Klein,
Yeah,
right?
And ostensibly he did.
Yes.
I mean, and I'm sure people will support many of his initiatives too, because he's very plain spoken.
And I would say that John Barr won his seat last year.
Yeah.
When he was honored at HCC, that was the night that he won his seat, because because he was being honored for showing his commitment to community, and the community rallied to
And
come
you
out
know
for
what?
him.
And I'm happy to hear that. But here's the problem. And here's the problem I have with elections at this level. It wasn't it wasn't last year that John Barr had an epiphany that he needed to support the community. That guy has supported the community for his entire adult life, or at least the part of it that I know. And I mean, to an extent, and not stuff that that is going to get him awards and
Right.
pulled up on a stage. I remember I was with the Kiwanis Club. This was 15 years ago, probably. I was ringing the bell for Salvation Army. And you know what John Barr was doing? It was an exceptionally cold day, and he took portable heaters around to every one of those spots and plugged them in. Do you think he got his name in the paper for that? No. That's just the kind of guy he is.
And he wouldn't be looking for his name in the paper.
That's even more important.
And I'm going to venture to say he wouldn't be taking a selfie.
No, absolutely
that he was
not.
doing it. So if he
absolutely-
wasn't there, you wouldn't have known that he did it, right?
That is exactly right. And isn't that the kind of public servants that we want?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and I think he's ingrained in the community as well. He is a legacy as well in the community.
He is
as
a
well.
legacy.
So, you know, he has a generational voter base.
He has
that comes
a
out his way.
generational vote. Well, he does, but he also has. I mean, he has shown his true colors and shown his commitment to Washington County. I think over and over and over again, not just in the last year, but for his, at least again the part of his adult life that I've been connected to.
Absolutely, and as far as he doesn't need to take a selfie. His name resonates itself. That's when I'm talking about generational.
Well, and I'll tell you what else. He doesn't need this job.
Exactly.
He is not. The paltry salary that you make as county commissioner is not going to make or break John Barr.
Right.
The headache might break him, but the money is not going to make or break him. And based on the notion of putting those heaters around, as just one example of, I'm sure, hundreds, if not thousands, he doesn't want the recognition either. So he's not getting in this from an ego perspective. He's getting in this because, in my view at least, he has the best for Washington County in his thoughts.
And, you know, Randy Wagner was rewarded by the voters. They saw that they liked what he brought to the table.
Randy,
in his first term.
I think Randy and John on a commission together brings an interesting possible partnership, because I think they probably may agree on more things than we might imagine. So I think that one's interesting. I want to go through the rest of these, but can I just go to the other end of the continuum?
Sure.
The ones that we clearly didn't choose. At the bottom of the list,
Well,
at the bottom of the list was Jamie B. Lawrence, which
he didn't run.
He didn't, but you know what? I'm still surprised because he's getting a fair amount of name recognition. He's from all I have seen, he's a very positive and sensible businessman in this community. He's got an up and coming video business. I was surprised he didn't get more votes than that. I mean, he got
politics is a different
473
animal,
votes.
though.
I get that.
He's a small business owner. He is not in the rooms where you can get that kind of influence. And when he is, he's behind the camera.
Okay.
So you're not supposed to be seen, right? When you're in that kind of profession, you're not supposed to be seen. So you're not making those relationships. And also, because he is a videographer, your art is a reflection of you, but it's a business. So he also does a lot of recordings for some controversial musicians and rap stars and things like that. So I think it's also it's hard to depict him as a county commissioner, taking all that into account, how people may perceive that. So as popular as his name may be, I didn't really see him as a viable candidate because that's how he was going to be perceived.
Michael Lynn Sprecher is in the second to last position at 1.73% or 955 votes.
I don't remember seeing anything.
I mean, he clearly just didn't run, which again, going back to my Jamie B. Lawrence thing, I think Jamie put up more of a campaign, in my view at least, than Mr. Sprecher, and yet Mr. Sprecher beat Mr. Lawrence.
I don't know about that because from all I saw, Jamie put his name in, and that was it.
Okay.
I think there was a lot.
He was more visible to me, but maybe that's because I know a little bit about Jamie, and I don't know
think
anything about
that's
Mr.
because
Sprecher.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah.
And third to last, which I got to be very honest on this one. After the comment about the Bowman family terrorizing this county for a long time,
And
or whatever,
blocking you on social media.
well, I don't care. I don't care. I've been called worse by better. Trust me. But Mr. Snyder got the butt whipping that, in my mind, he so richly deserved. I just was surprised that even was third to last. I thought he would be
Well,
last.
he pulled that stunt, about a month before the primary?
Right, I know.
Where he was going after Jeff Klein?
Yeah. And how'd that work out for him?
It didn't work out too well. I wonder whose bidding he was doing by doing that, though.
Who knows?
They said you don't get in a fight that you know you're going to lose, right?
Well, yes, you do if it'll give you publicity,
Right.
because there is no such thing as bad publicity.
Well, that's not true.
I don't know.
That's a saying, but it depends on what your outcome
We'll
is.
test that theory when Donald Trump runs for president again.
Right. I think it's what your outcome. If his outcome was truly want a county commissioner, I don't think that the bad publicity doesn't help. But if it was just to get recognized and get out there and be heard, yeah, it worked in your favor. You took a swing and you kind of borrowed some of the notoriety of the person you were swinging at, and in turn, and people you were swinging at, because you went after some big names in the community. I give him that. He swings high, even though he punches low. But
How do you?
Well, clearly the punches didn't connect.
They didn't connect, but I don't know that. I don't see him going away.
Yeah.
I really think, again, we're in a time where elections are won and lost or on social media. And we're going to see more and more people gravitate that as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, in my humble opinion, I sincerely hope if Mr. Snyder wants to be a card-carrying benefit to this community through elected office, I hope he takes this as an opportunity for introspection and learns from his mistakes and is able to come back, be of service. Because I don't care what your history is. I don't hold a grudge. I haven't held a grudge for more than 58 years. But my point is, I'd love to see him come back and correct his errors and
You have not held a grudge in 58 years.
for more than 58 years.
Okay.
For more than 58 years. There's a little difference there. That was a joke, by the way.
Well, and character, part of your strong character integrity is about humility.
Right.
You know, it's about sometimes having to admit that you're wrong.
Right.
You know,
and that's right. And I hope he learns from this. But for now, in this election cycle, I am not happy with him, and I am happy to say this, to quote the old television show: "You are the weakest link. Goodbye."
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
That sounds like a Trump endorsement right there. And then, as we kind of work our way up the ladder, we talked a little bit about Victoria Beachley, but also with Valerie Oliver. Did we see anything from her campaign?
No.
Yeah, we didn't see anything, and she was at 3%. And then Brian Tanner, I mean, there was an investment there. I saw some,
Yep.
some
Yeah,
big
there was
sides
yeah,
out
exactly.
there. But other than that, there wasn't much there.
So the interesting thing, election night, and even after the election, you saw John Barr and Wayne Kiefer kind of
They were
trading
back and
spots,
forth, yeah.
back and forth.
Right.
And at the end of the day,
It was the mail-in votes.
it was the mail-in votes, and Wayne Kiefer lost to John for the
9
position
votes.
by 9 votes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you think your vote doesn't matter,
It very well does.
yeah, I mean, it absolutely
And
does.
there's some other races we're going to talk about. Votes do matter. Your
That
vote
votes
does
do matter. So I was interested in that. We talked about Wayne. Did we talk about Wayne? Yeah,
We did talk about.
We talked
Well,
about John.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Obviously, Wayne's there to stay, right?
Yeah.
Same thing I said in regards to Wayne. He was rewarded by the voters.
Yeah.
They saw fit to keep him solidly in there on that side, and so.
So, in a general election, with Jeff Klein getting 12.82% of the vote in the primaries, Randall Wagner getting 12.12% in the primaries, and John Barr getting 11.7% of the vote in the primaries, would you agree that the top slot is very much up in the air at this point?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, certainly at least between Mr. Wagner and Mr. Klein.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would also, again, like I stated at the beginning, how many voters came out?
Well, that's exactly right.
You still have a large voter base that needs to come out.
Right.
And even within the party, but we also talk about the independents that are going to come out.
Well, and the independents are going to help John Barr,
Absolutely.
I think. I think the independents may help Randy Wagner. I think they're going to, just my opinion, I think they're going to help Jeff Klein to a lesser degree.
Right.
But I think Kiefer may be the beneficiary of more Democratic votes that go on the other side.
That you may very well be right on that. Speaking of Democrats,
Speaking of Democrats, we have 2 Democrats that were in the race. Neither one of the Democrats, from a vote total standpoint,
carried the day.
neither one of them eclipsed the top 5 on the Republican side.
Well, that's true, but but they also, I mean, it was basically a dead
Heat between the two.
27-32 for Dave Williams, 26-53 for Sterling Sanders, which I was amazed at. That's another one where I was wrong, because you pointed that out earlier. I thought Dave would carry that much more handily than what he
Well, that
did.
just says to me that Democrats just checked the box for both.
Yeah, you had to
Well,
pick
that's
2 of
true.
the 2.
That's
right?
true.
And
Yeah, so maybe that doesn't say much. So let me ask you this. Knowing that there is a percentage of Democrats out there, knowing that this county largely elects Republicans to county commissioners, is the strategic thing to do for one of these guys to drop out so that the Democrats that are going to vote Democrat,
Could rally behind one.
yes.
If they were working as a team and the goal was to get a Democrat elected, that would be
I mean, because let's say that we have rhinos that might vote for one Democrat. just that number of votes, not to mention the independents, not to mention the Democrats that may be Dinos that are going to vote for 4 Republicans.
You're trying to get that to stick, aren't you?
They're trying to-
He's worked it. He's worked that for about a month now.
Dino, Rhino, whatever you want to call them. Is there a strategy there for one of them to drop? And if so, who is that?
I don't see a strategy.
It is a strategy. It's it's the only way to win. Honestly, it's the only strategy.
I don't think a Democrat gets. I'm going to be bold here, and you can tell me I'm wrong after Election Day. I don't think a Democrat gets in unless one of them drops.
I agree. As I said, I think that's the only strategy to really work. And if you're really pushing for some party diversity out there, that's the only way you're going to make it happen. Because you're going to just cannibalize each other's votes. You know, when the ballot and the independents also come into play as well.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
and if you look, Democrats only casted 7,893 votes of 31,000 registered voters.
So so here's my question. Have you seen any true strategy out of the Democratic Party?
Locally, no, but I haven't seen a strategy out of the Republican Party either.
Yes, you have.
What is it?
A farm system.
Okay. Supported by the Republican Central Committee.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been their formula. But here's the thing, though. If you have 2 guys that are basically in a dead heat and you're going to convince one of them to drop, both of them are thinking like, I got as good a shot as the other guy.
Well, I got that.
But it's still no
But they
shot.
don't.
Right?
It is.
We both got a great chance to lose.
So that's right.
or
So
one of us has a chance to win.
Will one of them take one for the team to potentially get the other
Let's
one
cut
elected?
to it. Who should take one for the team?
Sterling Sanders.
Terrence?
I agree, only because I think Sterling Sanders would be a better behind the scene to help rally people to put more votes.
I
Towards the
100%
under candidates.
agree.
And
And I'll tell you what, Dave Williams, boy's got some game.
Yeah.
He is a very, very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
I have talked to him a couple times. I got to tell you, I like him. I like him a lot.
Yep, and I think
Would I vote for him as a Republican? Probably.
You've tipped your cap on that over a month ago, Jim. We know
Let me
you-
tip it again.
You rhinos, boy. You guys will go anywhere.
yeah, and I think sometimes it's in a strategy. It's best to have a stronger number 2 than a number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and a strong number 2 can really push a number 1 forward. And I think Sterling has that name recognition. I think he has more of a community presence that way. And I think because Sterling has a name, there are people who don't like Sterling. It's just the way things go.
And I don't dislike Sterling. I
No.
like Sterling fine personally. I don't think he would be a strong politician.
Again, it's not even about being a politician anymore. Unfortunately, this is a popularity contest in some ways as well with a lot of these voters, and that's where that name recognition comes in at. And if you're a public figure, you're going to have people who like you who don't like you. And the longer you are in the public, the more people who eventually just don't like you. So I think him being a number, that's why I believe he'll be a stronger number 2.
Yeah. Now, they're probably going to kick me out of the Republican Party for the notion that I
You've
would
been
vote for.
out. You didn't know that.
Well, I fully expect. Do you guys own your own houses? Do you have a homeowners association?
No.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so I'm figuring like the Republican Central Committee. Their next move is to do like a homeowners association for Republicans, and if you vote for a Democrat, you have to pay. You get fined $100, right?
I just, and no matter who gets in right now, I think, what we should, also start turning our attention is to what are we going to hold them accountable for?
That's exactly right.
There's
And those will be the subjects of conversation in some of the upcoming shows. Believe me. What are the priorities?
Because
we're going to bring the people that understand this community in that are not in public office over the coming weeks, and we're going to grill them on what we should be worried about because
Well,
they have no dog in the race.
Well, I think one of the things that has to be on the table is a better working relationship between the city and the county.
100%.
Right.
And I don't care how good it is. It can never be good enough.
Right. But it has to work.
And there needs to be a good relationship between the city and the state and the county and the state.
Yes.
It has to all roll up.
Yes.
It has to be a third party. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening that way. We just
Yeah,
talked about the county commissioners.
We're in a hyper-partisan environment.
Right, and we just talked about the county commissioners that are coming are a lot of the same ones coming back, right?
For sure.
And we still have the same city administration. We feel that with the Senate race, we really believe Quarterman may be staying in his seat. He may be a strong favorite in his race, possibly. We talked about the delegate races are kind of up in the air. I think there's just too many of the same people with same personalities in the same rooms to all of a sudden think that there's going to be this harmony and this kumbaya moment, which we need because there's a lot of change that needs to happen right now in parallel with a lot of big change that is actually happening right now as well. So I don't know what that outside entity is.
But the county commissioners, though, have a shot, right? Because you're going to have 2 new members.
You are, yeah.
That's going to change the dynamics in that room. So you have the ability.
There are a lot of
for some
people,
fresh minds.
The feedback that I have received on the street, in email, whatever, there are a lot of people that this term, more than any other term that we've covered, and this show's been on the air for going on, 9 years now, going on 10, not nearly as much in the past have I heard the old, we got to get rid of all of them. And I've heard that this time. And I'm not saying I support that notion, but I've heard it from a number of people.
Well, you can want to get rid of as many people as you want, but if you don't have strong individuals who are going to step up and run, be candidates, or people who take that talk and exercise it in their votes, we just spinning our wheels.
Right, because, with all the concerns about what was happening with Fort Ritchie and how that was failing, and people were really upset at the county commissioners.
Yeah, well, they should be, because that was a bloody mess.
But it died, right, when it came down to it.
It died, but it was a bloody mess.
I mean, the person that did not get in, that was an incumbent, was the one that had the least to do with it.
Yeah. So let's play a game here for a second, if we can. Looking at the 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats.
Yep.
What should they be focusing on? What is their weak point? What should they be doing in order to assure a win, to assure being part of the top 5? And I'm going to start with John Barr again. He's done all this amazing stuff. He's got a lifetime of service as evidenced by the HCC event. And by the way, that event, they've done that for few people in this community. And you look at the names, and they are the people that have really made a difference in this community. And I think John Barr fits squarely in that list. He needs to get that out there. I know he doesn't want to be in the limelight. I know he wants to do stuff behind the scenes, but he needs to get that out there.
I don't believe he needs to do anything different.
Okay.
To win? No. I think he
Could he get the top spot?
If he does something different.
Right.
I don't think he takes the top spot if he stays the course. I think he's definitely a top vote getter, but
Right.
I still think Klein will come in and grab the top spot out of.
By the way, do we remember that when in John's last term he was president of the Maryland Association of Counties?
I did not.
Yes.
Before my time.
There again, that's not something that is just a fly-by-night commitment. That was a huge commitment for him, and by the way, a significant feather in Washington County's cap.
I don't think any of the
Do you think I'm a Barr supporter?
No, I just think that's great information, but you tap 100 people on the street,
And they're not gonna-
99 have
no.
no idea what you just said.
Right.
Right? Or what that means, or how great that is for the county to have that kind of representation. I think people don't look at that right now. I think that's too much out of the scope of what's impacting people's lives right now. So that's great to be represented. That's great to be sitting there. But how does that put food on my table? How did that get homeless off the street? How did that affect some of the major things in our schools? Those are the things that I think he's done a lot of work. He's given, he's participated, he's been a philanthropist, he's helped charitable organizations. That's the tie-in to what people's immediate needs are right now, because that's what they're going to be voting for in November.
I don't believe any of the 5 Republicans need to do anything different to win. It's the Democrats that need to do something different. They would need to reduce the one candidate And that one candidate needs to run a super strong campaign, getting out his message all over the county.
Well, I think, so of the Republicans that are,
And who's he going to steal votes from?
well, on the Republican side, I think that the obvious choice, if a Democrat were to be elected,
He would be losing, Kiefer would lose votes.
Kiefer would lose votes and maybe Derek Harvey.
Harvey's not
No.
going to lose votes.
So you think,
Harvey is to the right of pretty much all of these candidates.
Yeah.
so you think if someone was ousted, it would be Wayne Kiefer, not Derek Harvey? Wow.
If you're looking at the average voter, and if it's coming down between Dave Williams and somebody, in this cycle where Republicans are going to run with things and, across the country, that's the kind of conventional wisdom. I just don't see it.
Okay.
Not in Washington County.
Yeah, I really don't think Kiefer takes the loss, but I think he's the most vulnerable because his voter base is the most diverse. And we looked at the numbers, comparison of voters. Like again, 43,000 Republican voters, up 31,000 Democrats. But when we went to the election and primaries, 14,000 Republicans showed up, but only 7,000 Democrats showed up. That's a huge disparity of voters and percentage-wise between what's going to happen in November, especially, again, going back to independents coming out to vote as well. So I think those who have a strong Republican base are good. Those who may be relying a little bit more on independent and Democratic votes are the ones that are going to be at risk, if at all.
And and has there been any proof that Democrats have a voter turnout machine that's going to get people to polls in an election cycle where they're not turning out?
Well, yeah, and it is an election cycle where I'm afraid the Democrats are not going to turn out.
Right.
Except for the diehards.
And I disagree with that to a certain extent, because even though our campaigning and elections run so long, the real work usually happens in the 60 to 90 days before the generals actually happen, right? That's when the campaign happens. That's when the commercials happen. I sat and watched the news today while working, and there was a campaign ad every 15 minutes that aired. That wasn't the same thing a month ago. So we're seeing a lot of ramp up. That's going to be really condensing this cycle. There's be a lot of get out to vote campaigns. People are going to start spending money because they also keep their money close to their vest until they realize where they're going to actually spend. Nobody wants to invest in a candidate that's not going to make it through the primaries. So I think a lot of that money is going to be spent.
But that sounds national. That's not a local race. Dave Williams is not raising a lot of money
No, I don't think he
to
is.
run in this county.
No,
race.
he's not raising money, but the national push is getting out voters. And voters, whether they still have to vote locally.
Jim, you want me to just give you a little clue?
Lay it on me.
Stephen A. Smith
School me.
says on a lot of segments when football players get in trouble, stay off the weed, man. Terrence thinks a lot of Democrats are going to come to the polls in Maryland because marijuana's on the ballot.
Not just marijuana's on the ballot. I also think that there's been a big push even with women voters that are going, that are going to be more so looking at some of the things that we've seen with Roe versus Wade. That's going to bring out more Democratic voters as well. And we've been watching the national campaign of everything that's going on with Trump and January 6th, all that stuff. There's a lot of people kind of just coasting into the generals, and unfortunately, if you look at the numbers, Democrats don't come out as well in primaries. The numbers is automatically going to go up.
Well, gentlemen, I'm taking my primary wins, okay, and I'm pushing my chips in. Terrence, you're a great guy. Don't see it happening.
Republican commission is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, again, there's a lot of things that have to go right.
Well, a lot of things. Again,
All right, can I
is someone going to step out of this race and let it be?
Well,
run?
or
right. That's number one.
is either Dave or Sterling going to codify a position that's saleable in Washington County to a largely Republican base?
And what would that position be, since we're pontificating on that?
And let me say this. this is the job of a central committee, right? This is when you bring the two candidates in and you have a conversation and you explain this to them and really strategize about how you make sure that you have representation. Like, this is where central committees should step in. Now, again, I agree wholeheartedly that the Republicans will take these seats unless that first domino falls, which means one of the Democratic candidates steps out and pushes all the chips in to support the other.
I still think it's going to be tough. I still think
I think it's going to be tough too, because we're picking 5.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're right. I think that act of one of the Democrats stepping away and saying, this is our guy this term. And, you know, with the strategy that we get 1 on this time, and if he does a great job, then we get 2 on the next time. If I'm the Democrats, that's where I'm going.
Well, the Democratic Central Committee just opened their new facility.
Yes, they did.
Did you get an invite, Terrence? You gave them the whole strategy.
I did get an invite. I didn't go, but I did get an invite. But again, I think this is an opportunity for the central committees to start thinking about some of these strategies. You know, as we go year in and year out, you start now. Even if the strategies were employed right now for this election cycle, you got 2 years with, you know, before you're here again, right? And every 2 years thereafter. So I really believe that strengthening that central committee, strengthening the strategic base, and stay off the nonsense on social media.
Well, I would say the county commissioner race has been pretty clean so far, other than, you know, Caden's stunt.
Yeah, I think
it's been a clean race.
I think that I would, yeah, I don't know how you get the message out any clearer. I know that you go on foot. That's a lot of it in county commissioners and even state races. But I think for the Democratic candidate to win, it's gonna be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
But I think it's a battle that can be won with a couple of good strategies.
Agreed.
We'll surely be following up on that. But gentlemen, I'm looking at my Google machine and my notes. We haven't covered the Judge of Circuit Court, District 2A, and Sheriff. So we have some more races to cover. But let's hold tight here, regroup, and come back.
All right.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll have more of election coverage after the break.
Did you know Antietam Broadband offers an affordable, reliable home phone solution? Get unlimited local and U.S. long distance, plus call waiting, caller ID, voicemail, and more. Switching your home phone service to Antietam is easy, and you can keep your same number. Antietam Broadband, the reliable choice. Make the switch and start saving today. Add home phone service from Antietam Broadband. Call 301-797-5000 today.
The University System of Maryland at Hagerstown provides a convenient location for students to earn a bachelor's, master's, or even doctoral degree. Located in downtown Hagerstown, USMH offers more than 20 degrees from 7 Maryland state universities. Classes are taught by the same professors you would find at your home institution, and your degree comes from that university too. Regional tuition rates are available for select counties in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. There is even student housing within walking distance of the campus. Simply apply for transfer admission at the university that offers your program. Scholarships are available both from USMH and individual universities. With flexible scheduling, small class sizes, and state-of-the-art facilities, there's no better time to complete your degree. Apply today. University System of Maryland at Hagerstown. Academic excellence, outstanding value.
We see, and there's pictures embedded in my mind of, for example, a little 3-year-old girl who's carrying bags of things that her mom had selected, and her mom before her is in here as well. So generations where you can see that this is a special place, something for them to be able to select a neat gift, and to see that transcend across generations is, it's just a great thing.
This is what it can feel like when you outgrow your internet speed. Chances are you have more internet-connected devices in your home than you did a year ago. Switch to Antietam Internet for the right fit for all your devices. Antietam Broadband delivers the speed and reliability you need with professional installation and no contracts. Sign up for internet service today and get speeds up to 1 gig. Call or visit AntietamBroadband.com.
The University System of Maryland at Hagerstown provides a convenient location for students to earn a bachelor's, master's, or even doctoral degree. Located in downtown Hagerstown, USMH offers more than 20 degrees from 7 Maryland state universities. Classes are taught by the same professors you would find at your home institution, and your degree comes from that university too. Regional tuition rates are available for select counties in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. There is even student housing within walking distance of the campus. Simply apply for transfer admission at the university that offers your program. Scholarships are available both from USMH and individual universities. With flexible scheduling, small class sizes, and state-of-the-art facilities, there's no better time to complete your degree. Apply today. University System of Maryland at Hagerstown. Academic excellence, outstanding value.
Welcome back to the show. We have more election coverage covering some of the local races. Thank you for staying with us. Gentlemen, the judge of the the judge of the circuit court, which had Adam Drevel running against Joe Michael. Joe was appointed by Governor Hogan, and he was back. And the unique thing about this race is that they were both on the Republican and the Democratic ballot. Now, the interesting thing was after the election, it was up in the air because Joe was winning one and Adam was reading another. But then the mail-in ballots came, and Judge Joe Michael ended up taking both, so he will retain his seat.
Yeah, and you know, there's a larger issue here, and we talked about the voting cycle for this particular race before, and the fact that you have to be, when you're appointed, you have to be elected the next cycle, and then you have to be elected, I believe, 10 or 15 years. 15 years hence. So there's a lot of conversation about that, which we'll talk about in another segment. But I guess from my perspective, I'm not surprised that Joe Michael carried this,
But the Republicans saw it differently than the Democrats, right?
Yeah, they did. That was interesting. That was
because the Democrats, you know, we have about a 9-point margin on the Democratic side. The Republican side, that's where the
about a
energy
3-point
was.
margin,
right? And it was the push of the mail-in and provisional ballots, which is the irony, right? On the Republican side, a race being decided by mail-in provisional ballots.
Yeah. So there were twice as many Republican voters on this particular ballot,
yes,
as there were Democratic voters, or a little less than half, or a little, almost twice. And I think from my perspective, that is just indicative of the fact that, as we've talked before, that the Republicans are more incentivized to go out to the polls this cycle.
Yes.
So I don't read much more into it than that. I do think, and when we get into that topic, I do think it's going to be interesting, the notion that, you know, should this be the way that we elect circuit court judges? I think that's going to be an interesting conversation, because in some counties, apparently, you know, the appointed person is most narrowly win. Some win by a wide margin, but it's an interesting way to do that.
Well, and in this case, as soon as Judge Michael was appointed, his challenger stepped up right away. Said, "I'm running." Like, if that's who you're appointing, I'm running. Right. So I don't think even Michael had the opportunity to be an incumbent and kind of stand alone for so long without having someone on his heels immediately, right? So I think that plays a little bit different when you're an incumbent and you're sitting in a seat for 1 or 2 years, and you get and then someone comes in, a new name. But I think this was an immediate response that we've seen with the challenger to the incumbent, it was a narrow margin. It could have went any way here, right?
Because if they would have split between, it would have went back to, it would have went to the general election.
Yes, it would.
And it would have brought the it would have brought the independents into play, and then it's a wide open ball game.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
But so it was tight.
Yeah, it was a tight race. And, you know, I mean, 6,040 for Mr. Grievel and 6,366 for Mr. Michael. Once again, every vote counts.
And Grievel was very vocal about Michael, his
Plea deals.
plea deals, right? He said, my opponent admits to pleading out to 95% of his cases as a prosecutor. There was a response to that, that plea agreements or suspend sentences are necessary to kind of balance out the fact that courts have finite capacity, but it was immediate trigger, right? And these are things that I think a lot of people who voted had no idea about. And we talked about this before, not really being educated or understanding when we're voting for these judges' positions, especially that have 15 years and some judges 10 years of terms when you make these decisions. So I don't know how we do a better job of that. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but some of this information, I can't really believe that people didn't just vote on name recognition.
Yeah.
They could have.
And there's some more meat on that bone, but let's leave that for now.
Let's leave that for now.
Let's go to District 2A. Bill Weibel had 3 challengers
He did.
this go around, and obviously he had a hiccup. I would call it a hiccup with the whole fiasco of entertaining going to West Virginia. But he was the clear winner here. He won close to 45% of the vote. He ran against Bradley Belmont, William Valentine, and Seth Edward Wilson.
So
he was a clear winner.
Yeah, and the next closest was 19% of the vote. So
Yeah.
that was not a close election. Mr. Weibel got 4,949. Mr. Wilson, who was the runner-up, got 2,110. Mr. Valentine got 2,106, so 4 votes there, and then Mr. Belmont was at 1,909. So it was Mr. Weibel and the also-rans, in my view.
Right, and if you got to pick 2 on the ballot, so most likely they pick Weibel and someone else.
Right.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, and I don't think the whole West Virginia thing. I think again, short-term memory.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Short-term memory.
Short-term memory.
So yeah, I don't think that factored in.
Not at all. I agree.
Because I think the majority of voters, you'd say, how about the West Virginia thing? And they'd say, what about the West Virginia thing?
I think I don't think they. I know they probably even know about it, but most couldn't even name who was championing it and who wasn't.
Right.
But I got to tell you that is bothersome to me.
I mean, we're closer to it. I mean, obviously, we covered it in the
I
time.
like Bill Weibel. I really do. But that was a miss.
But here's the thing, though. If you're a regular voter living your life, we're just kind of coming out of COVID, you have a newspaper that really did not cover it greatly.
Yeah.
There's no television coverage. How much does the average voter know about it?
Right. Well, you know, the other thing is, I mean, we obviously, it was a big deal to some because look at all the Democratic candidates that ran for 2A. How many were there?
There was one, Kerry Hinton, and you know, obviously unopposed, but only 1,300 votes, and that's, you know, we're looking at about a third or less of the vote total, more like 25% of the vote total that Weibel had.
No, wait a minute. Kerry Hinton was for District 1C.
Or am I looking at the wrong one?
Yeah, Kerry Hinton was. There was no Democratic.
Oh, there are no
Democrats.
You're right. There are no Democrats in
right
in 2A.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's Weibel. Weibel's back in the seat.
Weibel's back. Back to the future.
Back to the future.
But speaking of 1C.
Speaking of 1C, we had Terry Baker, county commissioner currently, vacating a seat. Well, that's if he wins, right? Well, he's vacating a seat either way.
Either way, right.
He ran unopposed. Not a lot of votes coming out of this district all the way around. And then on the Democratic side, as I misspoke before, Kerry Hinton. But again, this is another situation where Kerry has a third of the votes of Terry Baker going into the general.
So this is going to be decided by the independent.
And is there enough energy to make up the gap?
I don't know.
And is there enough independent base in that district?
Right.
Well, that's the key.
Right.
That's the key.
Right.
I mean, Mr. Baker can be a polarizing figure at some level. People tend to either really, really like him or really, really not.
But he's running in a district that does not receive a great deal of attention.
No. Yeah.
And that was vacated by
Mike McKay.
McKay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah. So the last local race that we have not covered is the sheriff's race. We had 3 candidates on the Republican side. We had Brian Albert, Greg Alton, and Jim Holzinger, and that one was a barn burner. Albert won that race by less than 40 votes. And it was really the mail-in provisional ballots that really springboarded him over the top. That's where he had a pretty substantial margin, because looking at it, on election day, Holzinger had more votes. So early voting, Albert wins, and then in the mail-in provisional ballots made the difference to secure that win for him. And then a side note to that, the vote total was outside of the range by just a little bit of an automatic recount.
Right.
And for Holzinger to challenge that for a recount, it was going to cost him $54,000, which he declined to do.
Yeah. Which I don't blame him.
Yeah.
$54,000 is a lot, and how often do we see that change the results?
Right.
And it's a big gamble.
It is a huge gamble. And you know what? At some level, it doesn't look good.
Right.
You know, it really just doesn't look good.
But we're in a national period of contested and challenged elections. So, but
It doesn't look good, but with this small of a margin, I don't think anybody would have blamed him if it was within a realistic cost to do so.
Yeah, 30 couple votes?
yeah. And if we go right across to the next county in Frederick, you know, they're decertifying their election because they had some errors over there that need to be cleaned up. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I agree with you on the nobody would blame him. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't pay the $50,000.
That's what I'm saying. Within a reasonable cost. That's what I'm saying.
And honestly, what is the percentage that you can be off?
I spoke about that in the Herald Mail article. I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact number, but this was close.
My question is that percentage big enough? I mean, if you can't get a recount with 30 couple votes difference, I find that to be potentially problematic.
Yeah, especially with such a small voter turnout, right? You had only 13,000 people came out. So the difference in the, almost 40 votes looks larger because of the small turnout of individuals that came out.
And keep in mind the cost to the taxpayer if it is an automatic recount.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. But isn't our primary goal to make sure we do this right?
Agree.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
don't
just a deterrent to put it in the hands of the individual, to say, and then give them a price tag. Right? You're pretty much swaying me on how to make a decision. Do I fight for this and put my own economics, at risk? Then I'm gonna say no every time. It's a deterrent. I just think that.
Now, if the vote total was like this in the judges' race, would it have been different? Because, if you're talking about your salary over 15 years, right,
Yeah.
which you're locking in, the economics are a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
right?
Oh,
Because basically you're saying this is my career, right?
Well, and frankly, the sheriff makes reasonable money. Now, I know he or she is not guaranteed for 15 years, but
Right.
sheriff makes reasonable money. It's, what, mid six figures?
Possibly.
I can't remember. He got a raise at some
Right.
point. Yeah, okay.
But it's not what the investment it's the investment you made if it doesn't work in your favor.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
I get it.
Right, right. Last on the Democratic side, Junior McLeod
Yeah,
ran unopposed.
right. And I've heard nothing from him.
We've heard nothing from him. I mean, he had 5,800 votes, but when you total up all the energy on the Republican side between the three candidates and his vote totals, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And, the thing for me is that I really haven't heard anything in regards to this candidate. I saw some pictures from the Democratic Central Committee opening their new facility, and I saw him there, and I was going, oh, that's who Junior McLeod is. But I haven't really heard anything about his campaign.
He's got some work to do.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's enough time to do it in this election cycle in this county.
No, I agree, 100%. So we'll see. So are you predicting Brian Albert to win?
Yeah, I'm $95. I'm going back to my 95. I'm $95 on
Okay.
Brian. And I saw Brian early summer, and he said, I love to be on the show with you guys, and he says I'll be there when I win.
yeah, I'll give that to him from day one, even before he can even, declare that he was running. He was confident he was going to win.
Yeah.
He was confident from day one that he was going to win. He was going to run a campaign. He was going to win. And this campaign, there was some money put behind this campaign. They all had billboards up.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a yard sign kind of
No.
campaigning either.
Yeah.
They had some dollars really backed into this campaign. So
They did, but again, given the vote, the close vote that they had, obviously, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, for this primary season, we have covered everything from the state to local,
Yep.
from the rooter to the tutor.
Yep.
oh gosh.
You like that?
And we're going to once again have to defer any future because we're out of time on the show.
Well, there we go. Well, we can save all the fun stuff, but we got plenty to talk about. I mean, a lot of things are happening in our community,
There
and
are.
all the energy now is around the general and the posturing and all of that good stuff, and good things that are happening in our community and struggles that are happening in our community. So we have plenty to come back and talk to our viewers about.
For sure.
And as long as there's social media, we'll have something to talk about.
Oh yeah, there's always some drama on social media. All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and send us your comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That is feedback@theflipsidetv.com. But most importantly, join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You a good girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
You've got enough to worry about. That's why Antietam Broadband keeps your Wi-Fi worry-free with smart Wi-Fi. Antietam maps signal strength throughout your home. Then we install powerful Wi-Fi equipment at key locations to deliver strong Wi-Fi that keeps all your devices running smooth. with no dead zones. Relax with worry-free Wi-Fi. Available now from your friends at Antietam Broadband. Call or click to learn more.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.